Hi, good evening, everybody, and welcome to One Place East live podcast. We are here to celebrate Time to Talk Day, which takes place tomorrow. And we have a program that we are going to be running from 9:30 in the morning. You can find out further details about our program within this podcast, but you can also look on our website. So joining me this evening, I have my colleagues from One Place East, Isaac and Safer, who are going to be doing the technological stuff, which I have no idea about. But I do also have some guests that are going to be here sharing their experiences with us and telling us why, from their own perspective, it's important that we talk. So first, I would like to introduce Zainab. Zainab has been doing her training with us. She has been working in both crisis work as a lived experience practitioner and studying with One Place East, really specialising in recovery, and she's also doing a life coaching course. Zainab wants to take that further and actually work within the mental health sector using life coaching as a way of promoting people's recovery. We also have Wayne. Wayne joins us from someone who's been within the community. He's been very active in the community over the last decade, trying to push for young people and people of colour to talk more about their experiences and not to rely on mental health professionals, and wants to actually pursue a career in podcasting and to start his own charity. So it's lovely to have you with us. And we also have Lavinia, who is our own homegrown. She's a peer educator that started with One Place East Next Steps project back in 2018 and has been with us ever since. She's been instrumental in helping us to actually go through a transition of moving from a face-to-face way of working to working virtually. So it's lovely to have all three of you with us, and it's nice to know that some of you have your own experience of using services and some have experiences of perhaps maybe using GP services or other ways of helping you cope with mental health. But I guess all three of you are here this evening to help us talk about the reason why it's been so important for people to talk, particularly within this pandemic, about mental health and not to be ashamed of it. So perhaps we will have the first question, if that's okay with you, please. Safer? Okay. So I guess I'm going to put this to all of you, really, and I might ask Wayne to come in first. If you could say your views and thoughts about people's access to services during the lockdown. And when we talk about access to services, we're talking about people coming to us and telling us that they find it much more difficult to access services, particularly if they are not in an extreme state of either sort of depression or secondary mental health care. By that, we mean people with like long-term mental health conditions. But we're talking about people that have had some mild to moderate mental health distress that find it really difficult to seek access to services during lockdown. What are your thoughts of that, please, Wayne?
Yeah, I think my thoughts on that, basically, I was just thinking about this, and I thought to myself, it's like with this coronavirus, everyone's looking after their families. You know what I mean? Yeah, but then with the pandemic, people still expect to have the same service. Yeah, but they're not really thinking about people that providing a service that have to look after their own families as well. Yeah, so from that point, I'm thinking that maybe we can do something different.
Mm. What would you
Yeah,
like to see different?
what I'd like to see different is basically, just having this kind of conversation, like this kind of podcast, because my experience could help someone else not to go through, yeah, not to go through the same thing in the first place. Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Wayne. I think I'll bring in Lavinia, if you can
And
share your thoughts.
yeah, it's
The
yeah,
thing
go
is,
on.
like with this pandemic, a lot of the services are either trying to find the words, are overrun. Like there's not enough.
Oversubscribed?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Subscribed, and even for those who are starting to experience poor mental health, and they're going to their GPs, the waiting list is gonna take longer than usual. Therefore, they're just being handed medication, and then if the medication is not working for them, they're going pillar to post between GPs or other services and medication that may or may not work. And then with some services, if you're already accessing a service, sometimes to see a professional can take up to 8 weeks, and goodness knows what could happen within those 8 weeks before you
Yeah.
see a professional. And like there are like crisis hotlines, but it's so you need to nip it at the bud before it gets to a crisis point.
So with that in mind, I will ask you what I asked Wayne. Like, what would you change or do differently if you had the opportunity? What would you like to see happen to help support that, person who's waiting for services, perhaps?
Probably have more like a sort of, because at the moment they're sort of waiting on a tightrope. So it's more like having that service, or even like sort of like peer support in a way, or support groups that would be put in place to be their safety net. So like they don't have to go all the time, but if they know there's that group there, or that service there before they see a professional, like then they know that they don't need to sort of balance and try and keep it all together. They are allowed to like slip up, but not as heavy as to reach crisis point in a way.
Thanks. That's great. And I wonder about Zainab, what your view is. Do you have anything to add to what's been said already?
I was thinking to myself as Lavinia was speaking. I feel that there should be more adequate funding put in with services that deal with mental health, because the workers and the staff, I see and I feel the pain where they feel they're being overstretched. I think if there's more funding on already established services where they can run different groups, for example, like men's group, women's group, or perhaps coffee afternoons and mornings. So if more funding is available. The services that I've used, they are excellent. But it always comes down to the funding of these already established services. Instead of putting new
Yeah.
services out, I think the government should, as or whoever the funding body is, I don't know full details, but whoever the funding body is, invest in existing services and flourish them, and really explore their potential. That's that's all I've got to say.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Zainab. I don't know if any views have come in from the audience, but I think we clearly heard there that there are initiatives from all three, that there are initiatives that could help really support this never-ending waiting list that people experience when they're trying to gain access to help and support. So thank you for whoever put that question forward. I'd like to move to the next question, if I can, please, Safer. Okay, so this question is about the actual gravity of the lockdown and what has been your experience. So I'll be putting this to all three to ask them to think about what has been their experience of the lockdown and how it has impacted on them. Please only share what you feel you want to. You don't have to be an open book, but this is a time to talk session, so we would love to really hear, you know, what have been happening to each of you. And I'll come to you first, Lavinia, please.
The thing is, it's with my experience is that because I have so many other life sort of challenges as well, like being a carer for my mom, as well as being a mother to 2 children in schools, and then also being pregnant throughout the lockdown as well. It feels like I had a sort of like triple whammy just thrown at me in a way that because of like the size of property I'm in as well, like a big paranoia hit me because of like the children in school. If they catch anything, I can't isolate because there's only one room, or there's also like because of appointments, they're not allowed fathers in. So like I'm there having to prepare myself in case there's bad news, even though there's not going to be, because I can't go in there alone, despite the team knowing of mental health, then liaisons in with other services, as well as being a carer for my mom and having to explain to her like I can't do X, Y, and Z, or because of X, Y, and Z commitments, and then getting their support to understand that as well. But then it's just added stress because I feel guilty as well because I'm not able to commit to them. So that takes a toll on mental health as well. And because you're not seeing anyone either, and then stuff gets relaxed, anxiety increases because you don't know what's going to happen because you're overthinking all the time because of what you've been told before and during lockdown. And then you want, like most people crave human interaction, but then when it time to have it, you sort of go in a panic mode and you just end up isolating yourself more.
Thank you.
So it's just it's just like a cluster of many things during this lockdown.
Yeah, and I really appreciate and value how you opened up with that question, and you were so honest as well in what you shared. So thank you for being our opener. Zainab, what about you? Can you share what your experience has been in this lockdown?
In this lockdown, I must admit, it's been hard towards the end rather than the beginning, due to the fact I could accept what was going on. I could appreciate why there was a lockdown, why we needed to be indoors more than outdoors. But as time has gone by, I feel that restriction of um, going out freely and moving around, and it's affected me physically more than mentally. Actually, I've been eating a lot and putting on weight due to lack of movement. Then more, I have less movement than I had last pre-COVID, if that makes sense. So in that
Yeah.
way, it has affected me, more affected me physically than mentally. But as I'm saying it now, it's only recently I'm just like I feel like a tiger or an animal in a cage. I just wanna be beyond my cage, so to speak,
Be free from
than
your
be in the
cage.
cage. Yeah, that's a really good way of saying it. So on all honesty, at the beginning, I was accepting it. I was saying, okay, this is only for a short while. But as time has gone on, it's like, this is going on for a little bit long. So I am getting a little bit, let me out mode.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Zainab. Wayne, could you tell us some of your experiences of the lockdown?
Yeah, I think my personal experience is more like kind of knowing people that are suffering through mental health. But then what I've noticed about the whole thing is that people don't really reach out now. Yeah, people don't reach out now. We don't really reach out enough because when all the services are cut, yeah,
Have
and
you
you find
reached
people
out
like
enough? Have you
very
reached out
isolated.
enough to people?
Yeah, I've always reached out. I've always reached out. I told you, I told you earlier on. I was speaking to my friend. Yeah, sanctioned in my land. Yeah, but it's just that reaching out. I think for me personally, it's very, very important. Yeah, just reaching out. Just pick up a phone and
So
ring someone, see how they're doing.
sorry, Wayne,
Yeah.
how has the lockdown impacted on you, like personally? What have you noticed about your life and the
Uh,
changes?
Yeah, me personally, I wouldn't really say it's affected me that much, but then seeing people that really got affected around me, like especially where I live now, I've got older people that kind of need help, like yeah, just to do them now, help them out with the shopping, yeah, because they can't really rely on their family with the lockdown because of
Yeah,
travel
yeah,
restrictions. But then they can't really rely on the carers because the carers probably got vulnerable people in their families, so they cannot really go out to help out. Yeah, so basically that, yeah, just to reach out and tell them, if you ever needed anything, yeah, if you ever needed anything, just give me a call. I'll do it for you. But obviously,
thanks.
I'm everybody like I cannot reach out to help. That's more important than just having a. I think that's good. That's being a good neighbor,
Yeah,
especially.
thank you. Yeah, thank you, Wayne.
Yeah.
Um, should we move on to the next question? I'm wondering whether there were other questions, but if not, we can move on to the ones that we've had submitted. So, what have been the main reasons why people's mental health are suffering because of the pandemic? So, I don't know if you all want to just take it in turns to come in here to think about this question, but someone is really interested in why do you think it is that people's mental health may be suffering because of this pandemic?
I don't mind speaking on
If
this.
I could,
Yeah.
I don't mind speaking on this first.
mm,
It's just, I think with some aspects, depending if for many people it's just a change of routine and a big shift of reality. So they kind of gone from living normal to suddenly being thrown into like a what seems like a dystopian reality where you can't go out, you're monitored, you're and all that, and then like with many people, they've lost their jobs or been put on furlough. Therefore, poverty has increased.
Mm-hmm.
You have those with children in schools and they're kept at home. So then you have the stresses of trying to work at home and homeschooling, and then it impacts on the children's mental health as well. Because if you're stressed, it impacts on the children, and then the children aren't interacting or having their routines with schools. And it's just like a giant domino effect this pandemic has been. So if it's not affected one person in one way, it's affected them in a different way. So if it didn't affect them with work, it's affected them being like being reliant on others to support them because they're suddenly now classed as vulnerable and have to shield and they can't leave. So like with me, it's for my experience, it's more of that I had the kids at home as well as the stress of the children being home as well as having being pregnant, because then I have to try and I can't whip up childcare like I used to because I can't mix with them, yet the children can't come with me to the appointments.
And would you say that the lockdown has impacted on your own mental health as well?
Yeah, in time. Like at first I was loving it. I was like, yeah, I'm introverted anyway. This doesn't bother me. But then it came to more of the appointments and going hospital more, and then having to realize that those who I rely on can't, or my support can't be there to support as much, and I can't support them as much. So that impacted on my mental health. So that's the main thing. It's just a big shift of like routine and such with many people that has impacted on their mental health.
Thank you for sharing. Zainab, was you saying you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
come in as well.
just taking on Lavinia's statement. I 100% agree, and I would like to build on the fact, as routines have changed, rules which are not familiar to us yet completely have been introduced. Um, that it is a form of impact on our mental health because, um, in my opinion, the rules are quite flaky, if I could use that word. They're not really substantial, concrete, and so there's some
Mm.
confusion. There's worry about
Yeah,
money.
1 minute we're told
There's
to do
worry about
something, then we're told to do something else.
absolutely. So it's the confusion, it's the worry, lack of money, and like furlough or job losses are coming, homelessness, where people may lose their homes because they can't pay their rent slash mortgage. There's so many different factors, um, which can impact our own health. My mental health has been impacted financially, for financial reasons, because I don't know where a lot of money is coming from. It's a
Mm.
big worry factor. Um, so these and also people that live in accommodations where there's large families. Um, a lot of friction can happen because literally
Mm.
everyone's indoors, and you can't just go out for that quick little walk, and come back again refreshed. You've literally got to refresh yourself within the same environment,
Yeah.
and that can be impactful as well. Yes, that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you. And you've done it so well. It's really, you
Thank
know,
you.
lovely to hear what you're both saying about you're both noting that your own mental health has been impacted by this lockdown as well. Wayne, what about you? How do you feel about this question?
Yeah, I kind of feel like, yeah, the lockdown suddenly like kind of highlighted the problem. They like kind of exacerbated the problem that was there already. Yeah, mental health was more like kind of a forgotten part of the health service, but then the lockdown is just like kind of exacerbated the problem because now you got uh, domestic abuse, yeah, add on to it, like kids, yeah, not going to school, parents not knowing how to
Mm,
like kind of especially like disabled parents, yeah, not knowing how for the first time, yeah, to look after their children. You know what I mean? It's not knowing how to look after their children, but
you
having
mean
the
like
capabilities,
educating them?
yeah, to yeah, it's not necessarily about education because they're struggling, they get looked after, but now they're full time with no help. and looking after their children. So basically, the parents' mental health, that kind of
Because I know
then
what you're
one,
saying, but
then the children as well.
from my own perspective,
Yeah,
I am a
it's the
single
way I'm
mother
explaining. I'm not explaining that kind
working
of
at
stuff.
home with my child who's virtually learning,
Yeah,
and so I'm saying I don't know what that would be like for parents with disabled children. I know the struggle I'm having, so I'm asking you, do you think that's also impacting on parents' mental health? Because I think it's impacted on mine, trying to
yeah,
work from home,
absolutely,
be a mother,
absolutely,
do this, do that.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think he highlighted a problem that was there already. It was a big problem, but then it was ignored. But then the lockdown basically, just highlighted a big problem that was ignored for a very long time. So, and now I think personally, it's gonna be a much bigger problem than where it is, because yeah, with this virus having mutations now and again, now we don't even know how long the problem's gonna last.
Hmm.
It could be till next year, it could be Christmas. So to have a solid plan to do something in a different way,
So how do
I
people
think would be
tolerate that
more helpful.
uncertainty?
Yeah, in the long run. In the long run, huh? Say
How
that
do
again.
people tolerate how do people tolerate the uncertainty of what you're talking about? Because we never know how long we're gonna be home. How do people tolerate
I don't
this
think I don't
uncertainty?
I don't think people tolerate, but just people just adapt to like kind of what's going on. Because if things are happening that you don't really know how to deal with, you're gonna have to adapt. Yeah, but then I think in a way, some people got stronger. Yeah, with the lockdown, but then some people had a bit. Yeah, some people had a bit tougher than what they expected.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Some people that I've worked with have told me that they felt more prepared for the lockdown because of the experiences they had before the lockdown. So
Yeah,
in
yeah,
a way that's
experiences.
prepared them for it.
Yeah,
Thank you,
yeah.
Wayne. Safer, do you want to move to the next question or let us know if we've got any questions from the audience? So we've got something in from Indy. Hi, Indy. It's lovely to see your picture come up. What are you doing to look after your own well-being, or what kind of support have you got around you? I think that's a really important one. Who would like
What
to
are you
begin that?
What are you doing to look after? Uh, your-
I will. I will. Hi,
Thank you.
Indy. I don't have any doctor or psychiatrist secondary support right now. But I have personal support. I have my lovely daughter and let's say my son-in-law, and and I'm just beginning since lockdown. I've had the opportunity to open um, doors with some of my extended family. So this it's kind of it's slow process with my extended family, but with my daughter and my son-in-law, who I both appreciate being around me, and I consider myself extremely lucky to be in an environment where there's positivity, there's encouragement, and there's that unconditional love, and it's a really nice experience, and I'm really grateful for it because I've heard narratives where people are totally on their own in their dwellings, whether it be a big house or a flat, and they're totally on their own, and they really do feel that isolation. And when they describe it, it sounds so cold and hollow, and it sounds so horrible. And it makes me so grateful for having company within the pandemic. And the outside circle, I have a great set of friends as well. So if I'm saying, you know what, I can pick up a phone to my friend, and I've got that opportunity, and I'm lucky enough to say that I've got a good 5 or 6 friends, which I would say they're my, good sounding off base, good base to have around. Yeah, so yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Zainab. Does anybody else want to answer that question from Indy? Does anybody else want to share what they're doing for their own well-being to look after themselves?
Yeah, I know what I do. Yeah, just keep yourself busy, really. Like, yeah, just yeah, have a plan. Like, yeah, like when you wake up, like obviously depending on your own capabilities. Yeah, uh, whatever you can do, whatever you can plan to do during the day. So at least when you wake up, you have a little plan to go through. But
So
then
having a
if you just
focus,
if it,
having a focus.
yeah, it's not necessarily a focus, but making yourself busy doing something. Yeah, like for me, I wake up, I go for a run, yeah, or come back and that. Yeah, like kind of try to keep myself busy for the day. Yeah,
Okay.
possibly, I can go make friends, but some of us cannot physically do that. Yeah, or just even jump into a podcast or yeah, especially where you can communicate because humans are social animals. Yeah, but it's only yeah,
Mm,
when you just left for yourself, that's when the problem starts. That's my personal opinion.
thank
It's
you.
just yeah, some people are very lonely. Yeah, but then to like kind of try to get try to get off that and join podcasts or other things that can keep you busy. I think that's probably what I'll do as a person. But then it depends with
Yeah, and I
everyone's
guess
capabilities and friends. Huh?
connection
Yeah,
seems to
just having
be
a connection.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, just having a connect, but then it's hard to have a connection, and that's why, yeah, this kind of podcast is good, so we can build that communication, yeah, and connection, yeah, so we can reach out to each other. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Lavinia,
yeah.
would you like to?
With me, I just tend to keep my hands busy, as I have a history of, like in the past, I've had a history of self-harm and intrusive thoughts. And sometimes it would get to the point where it's like feeling physical, like on my hand, where my hands are. So then I just try and keep them busy, like creating things. So like knitting, sewing, even getting a pen and scribbling out bits or doodling. And then
Mm,
because I'm so prone to getting cramps with sewing and knitting anyway, it feels like I'd rather have that than the pain of what I would do to myself if I fell into those intrusive thoughts.
yeah, sure.
So just like keeping myself busy, even if it's just like
I
even
like the way
going,
you said your hands, keeping your hands busy.
yeah, because those are the ones that are very um are in some ways the culprit because they're the ones carrying it out. They're the ones who's going to be holding whatever. Sorry about that. And so even if I just like cook something and that keeps them busy, that way it's sort of like left in a sort of routine for their hands that they're not like end up sort of left dead to their own demise or something.
Yeah. And I could see people were talking about what they do, which is really good. Steph has said, I feel less lonely now as I do the peer group, and we all talk on the One Place East WhatsApp group. So I guess some people are saying, I guess it goes back to connection, what we were saying earlier. I've got something here, people having to adapt to the lifestyle of some of the disabled community who are and have been unable to leave their homes pre-COVID. Really good points there. Neil has said, I had a kind of blueprint pre-pandemic which has helped me to cope, but it's still been really tough. Absolutely. So even if we had a level of resilience or a plan before, I know I haven't really spoke about my own
Yeah,
experiences, but it's been really tough for even myself, and my own mental health, to kind of just find a way to carry on, particularly when you're very used to being out and about and supporting people and feeling a bit like an imposter working from home. Like, how can you really care and how can you really support people? So those are the kind of, and managing losses, you know, I've seen a lot of losses during COVID. So for sure, COVID has shook my own mental health as well. Should we have the next question? Um, if that's okay, please, Safa.
yeah.
So this is a big one, really. I guess thinking about stigma and how much does it impact mental health. So not really about COVID, but you know, how much, to what degree does
Yeah, it's
stigma
true. Yeah.
impact mental health?
If I could go first on this question,
Yeah.
through my own personal experience, I suffer, well, I'm a survivor, I should say. I should start with, I'm a survivor of psychosis, which I developed when I was very young. And on and off, I've been hearing voices and having hallucinations throughout my life. And I kept quiet about them, scared due to stigma. And as I come from an Asian community, the stigma of mental health now is changing now, but way back in the day, it was something you didn't talk about. It was very taboo. You start talking about, I'm hearing voices, words such as you're not
Mm.
religious enough, you haven't got much faith, or words like black magic, which can be, even to a young child, just hearing black magic is just so scary and so traumatic. I would go so far say,
Traumatic.
um, yeah, very traumatic. And Yeah, so I kept quiet, and I got diagnosed with psychosis at the age of 35 because and I held everything in for 35 years at that point, and I couldn't,
Wow.
and I had a nervous breakdown. So, I mean, stigma around mental health through different communities, it is different, but the aim is still the same. It's still a taboo subject. It is still something that is, especially within the Asian community, is hush hush talk. But now within families, there are some families that are starting to open up about
Mm.
mental health, but not fully. I think they do need some guidance and steering to be done in a healthy way that is not traumatizing for children and young mums and for parents to hear about. And I think again that comes with good workers that know the field and respect the field and know what culture that who they're speaking to. And I truly believe, and I have a point, and I have been an advocate of this. Even religious organizations need to actually have that training within mental health, learning practice. I think it would be so useful. I'm a woman of faith, developing a faith. I beg your pardon, and it's helping me to come to my faith in a healthy, positive way rather than forced. And it will save you. Your faith will save you. If you don't have that faith, you get that demonization. And to avoid that, I think religious leaders should have mental health practice, awareness practice. I beg your pardon, awareness practice, and I
So
think it'll
can
be
I
really
ask
good.
you
And
something?
yeah.
Can I ask you something, Zainab? So you were talking about culture and stigma in particular within certain cultures and communities, and you mentioned your own experience within an Asian community. Um, what would you say in 2021 now is still holding that stigma? Because I speak to, within the work I do, I speak to a lot of people that come to me from a Asian background as other backgrounds as well, but they also tell me this, and I'm just really curious from your perspective, where is the taboo still? What is that about? Can you speak on that?
Well, from my experience, it's hearsay, and I know that sounds really silly. It almost sounds like a playground thing, like, oh, I heard from Charmaine, nah, 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 and I heard from La La La, this, that. It's very much of um, uneducated words passed on to vulnerable people and vulnerable survivors,
So do
sufferers.
you think
However,
education has a big part to play in, mental health education has a big part to
I
play in
truly
tackling
believe that.
stigma?
I truly believe so. I truly believe so, and not just like just sort of like a blanket education. I think it should be um, almost layered awareness of mental health, how to cope with mental health, uh, mental health issues. It should be really, really deeply covered rather than blanket covered. Just that, oh, these are awareness, just be aware of X, Y, and Z, and you'll be all right. We really need deep layered education within communities, regardless if they're Caucasian or the BAME communities. We just need a deep education because mental health affects everyone. It doesn't pick a religion, it doesn't pick a color, it doesn't pick a culture. It can affect anyone, everyone. It doesn't even pick how rich or poor you are.
Yeah. Thank you, Zainab. Thank you. Does anybody else want to jump in on that question?
Yeah, the thing with stigma is it could be just small comments or slight. It doesn't need to be a big dramatic affair. It could be like small comments. So, during the lockdown, I was diagnosed with emotionally unstable personality disorder, also known as borderline personality disorder. For me, it made a lot of sense. Okay, I finally could put a name to how I feel, my reaction to things, and I went to get professional advice from someone, like regarding who would I need to inform
Mm,
in a way, and then when they found out the diagnosis, like, oh, but when I think of that diagnosis, I don't think of you, and
right. So you were challenged because of a label that didn't seem to fit you by the sound of it. That's
yeah,
what people were telling you.
and like a lot of people say, like, oh, have you been diagnosed like by a professional? And I was like, no, my foot diagnosed me. Like, in a way, it's like, of course, I wouldn't know of this without a professional diagnosis. And then another time, it was actually done by a professional who was like I went there because I was told I could possibly need to have my child early, and the consultant there just came up to me with a big smile on his face, like, "We know of your personality disorder." And I was like, "Okay, great, but that's not why I'm here. Like, can you tell me if I need to give birth or not tonight? That's all I want to know. That's why I'm here."
So their first reaction was having an interest in you having personality disorder, not the fact that your baby could be at risk.
Yeah,
Wow.
I felt like that I was more likely to put my child at risk than anything else, and it's really stressful as I've been told, like, "Oh, you don't have X, Y, and Z. You just have really bad depression." And I was like, "No, I have depression as well. It's just just a part of my life, Jenga. You know, I'm just hanging on by one block at the moment, while the rest is piling on." And how it impacted, you actually start to believe those comments and thinking like, do I actually have this, or and you also become, because with many of your diagnoses, you become hyper aware of what you do in a way. So you
Steph is saying she can really relate. Like, she says, "Oh, I've been told so many times I don't look like someone who has BPD." Can you relate to what Steph is saying, Lavinia?
Yeah, because from what I know is that from what people
Yes, Steph,
told us,
there is a look. It looks like this.
yeah, it's like, from what I've been told, it's always the anger, it's always the
Yeah.
aggression, the uncontrollable, not being able to control your emotions. Yet there was a time, what I found out is that you can internalize all of those emotions, then it hits to a breaking point, then you end up lashing out on yourself or others. And that's what people don't realize, that most people end up internalizing these things because of stigma. And it can be like a short comment. It doesn't need to be like full-blown discrimination linked with the stigma.
Thank you, Lavinia. Wayne, would you like to add anything to that question?
Well, yeah. So basically, like, yeah, the way I look at stigma, mental health. Usually, on a point basis, I look at it as ignorance. Yeah,
Ignorance.
there's people that just lack of awareness. There's people that just don't know what they're doing. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Yeah, there's people that do not understand because lack of awareness. If they could pick these kind of subjects in school, yeah, so when kids are growing up, at least they'll understand when experience or when they see certain things. But then comes in regulations as well, regulation. But then mental health and disability, are they the same thing? Because you can't be discriminated upon by the color of your skin or your disability. But then you could have a disability but still have mental health.
I guess it's all
Yeah,
they're all
so
discriminatory struggles, aren't they? And I'm wondering what it's like
yeah,
if you
yeah,
do
they're all
have, if your
discriminatory.
skin is black and you do
Yeah,
have mental health, like, does this
yeah,
all
yeah, yeah,
accumulate?
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's just part of a big problem because if you see a black person, you think, oh, they're gonna rob you, like, or you see a disabled person, you just assume, or you could never be able to do this. You know what I mean? That's a stigma already. Yeah, but
So
then
the
when you don't have
assumption,
assumptions. Yeah, but then when there's no regulation, when there's no government regulation to stop that, then I don't know if it's yeah. So basically, yeah. But then it's cultural as well. Like she said earlier, it's cultural and taboo. Yeah, there's certain cultures where they look down on people with disability. Yeah, so this is not even, this is nothing to do with racism or your color. It's just a taboo. It's more like a, yeah.
But we do know
But
that
then I think it's
black
just lack
males,
of,
for example, are overly represented in secondary mental health care. They're overly represented in giving diagnoses of schizophrenia. You know, we know that the statistics tell us that. So there is a representation of a certain race, that is, being seen, particularly in, mental health acute hospitals, for example.
yeah. I don't really know much about the hospitals, but then I think mental health should really be like kind of focused towards the community because it's your community that'll make you better. Yeah, it's the people around you. It's not being in a sanction in a hospital somewhere giving medications. You know what I mean? That
Mm.
I don't think that's the, the right way to do this because it's happened so for too long. Yeah, if you keep losing money in your business, you're gonna have to stop and think about a different idea. But just throwing money into something that is not working, yeah, is part of the problem.
So you think money's being thrown into mental health systems and it's not working? Is that what you're
Uh,
saying?
not necessarily manage healthcare should be founded, but then should be targeted in how to get people better, not to imprison them. You know what I mean? Because I've known people that sanctioned, yeah, but then they tend to get worse being locked
Being
up than
sectioned,
when they
being
when
locked up.
they out, yeah, when they're out in the community, yeah, with the yeah, I call it locked up. I don't even call it sanctioned, but because it's more like kind of taken somewhere against your wishes. Yeah, but then if that service could be kind of targeted towards the community, boroughs, councils, yeah, and have this kind of discussion debates podcast, yeah, more like kind of within communities rather than just the whole world. That you know what I mean?
Okay,
Yeah, but
thank you, Wayne.
just it's just yeah, okay, cheers.
So I'm
Yeah,
aware that we've only got a
it's
little
crazy,
bit of
innit?
time left and we've got one more question. Would we like to briefly sort of answer this one? I'm just thinking about the time. There's about 8 minutes or so. So do you think as a result of the pandemic, we will see a reduction in stigma within mental health? What are your
No,
thoughts?
no, there won't be
No, Lavinia.
because you can still be within like a certain community and still have stigma against someone in your same community. So, like like me, and probably a group of other people with mental health illnesses or different states of mental health. We could all be in that same group, but I could still hold stigma against someone, and someone could still hold stigma against me because of lack of understanding or anything. And the thing is, with mental health, it's so broad. No one's not going to understand everything, so there will be stigma regardless. So, like someone with like BPD won't understand what someone with DID is going to go through because they're two different um, like mental illnesses. So I could still hold some form of stigma against that person with DID, and that person can still hold that form of stigma against me. And a lot of because of the pandemic, a lot of people will say like, "Oh, but like 100 years ago, people had it worse, and they're fine now." And X, Y, and Z. Like many people have compared it to the First and Second World War with the um, where people had like evacuations and bombing, all that, and young people going to war. But yet, like, our generation is classed as too fragile. Hence why we have all these mental illnesses, and that's one of the things. And also with social media as well, like no one, especially Twitter and places like that, especially if you got those who have high statuses making different comments, it's not gonna end anytime soon.
Thank you. Anybody else want to answer that question?
Yeah, if I can jump in. What I wanted to say was, I'm gonna look at it from a government view. I feel, yes, that there has been a spotlight shone on the mental health services. But my worry is, instead of giving adequate funding, there's going to be more paperwork and more red tapes. And that's my fear. So, in that aspect, I don't think the stigma of mental health will be gone completely. And also adding on to what Lavinia just said, within the community of mental health, there are different tribes, if you like. You got the different tribes, psychosis, the BPD, and so on for autism, so on for. So you do have these different tribes, and like Lavinia did say, on each side there's a lack of understanding of the other's condition. So there is that factor, and
Yeah,
also the governmental factor, where I feel in the past, like in different sectors, there has been light shone on a particular service, and more work has been introduced, more hardship has been introduced, where service users are finding it hard to access a particular service due to the fact of the government helping out by putting more red tape, helping out by putting more paperwork on workers' caseloads, if that makes sense.
thank you, Zainab. It does make sense, and it's a really brilliant point. There's a bigger agenda, and that does lie within the government. Wayne, and if we could come to you, we've only got a few minutes left, but it'd be
Yeah,
great to hear
I,
you.
I think it's definite. I think the pandemic's definitely like kind of created more awareness, especially with the Black Lives Matters. Yeah, that created so much awareness as well. And plus,
The Black Lives
with
Matter campaign.
pandemic, yeah, it's more like kind of highlighted discrimination, but then with mental health and disability, it all comes down to this discrimination mostly. Yeah, so I think we're in a good place, but then there's a lot more to do.
I think that's great. We're in a good place and there's a
Personally,
lot more to do. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you to all of
yeah.
our panelists. It's been wonderful to have you with us. Just before we say goodbye, I would like to remind everyone that tomorrow we have a wonderful program at One Place East where we've got lots of people to come together, people from in the community that are supporting us, some of our staff, and we really want to have a conversation about what it is like to try to cope in a pandemic. Time to Talk, Wednesday, the 3rd of February, 2021, is this evening. It has been fantastic. Please join us tomorrow if you can be with us on any of our platforms. We also have Friday, the 5th of February, and we also have the quiz evening tomorrow night. If you want to find out any more details, you can contact Yvonne. Thank you, everybody. Good night. God bless. Stay safe and keep talking.
Okay. Yeah, nice. Uh, look after everyone.